Well, the day is finally here. Um, I received a package in the mail today that I've been waiting for since July. So I'm still pretty sick from what I can tell. I think it's probably going to be bronchitis. I still haven't gone to the doctor yet, but that's what I'm guessing it is. But I wanted to do this because it's just kind of a really big special deal to me. So this is my LT Wright Knives Pout House Custom. So what it is it's a custom knife that I completely designed and sent in a scaled drawing as to what I wanted. And I'll go over what the influences were behind this knife, because I'm sure a lot of you are going to see right off the bat that there's two or three knives that come to mind right when you see it, because that's the case in point. That's what it was. I wanted the two or three knives that I love the most combined in one. So moment of truth. As you can see, it is a pretty big box. Oh, that's cool. So here's the liners. This was going to be the like ivory or white micarta liners that we didn't put in it because it wouldn't be thick enough. It's a nice sheath, left-handed. Holy cow. Oh my goodness, it's perfect. Wow. Man, I can't. I'm having a hard time processing this right now. If it wasn't for me sounding sick, I'm sure I'd sound a lot more happier. I assure you, I am blown away, guys. Wow. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. All right, I'm gonna adjust the camera and kind of go over this and kind of let you know the thought process behind it. All right, so I showed you the reaction that I had and the unboxing of the knife itself, and I'll show some more close-ups and all that of it here soon. I apologize, guys. I'm not doing too well. I'm really struggling with being sick and stuff, my energy is pretty low and all that. So sorry if this is pretty monotone and not as exciting as what I normally am. It's just I'm sick, but I really wanted to go ahead and film this stuff and show you kind of the method behind the madness of this knife, and to kind of really illustrate why I sent in what I did, and its purposes, its influences, and just let you see a comparison of other knives that are pretty popular that most people have either seen or held. To kind of rewind it back, back in May, towards the end of May, I paid for my Pout House membership with LT Wright Knives. I saw that they were going to be doing customs month for the month of July, and so I joined, and I think it was May, it might have been June, I can't remember, but I started then thinking about what I wanted. I'm a huge fan of their knives and their craftsmanship and their quality, and just their customer service, and then kind of having a month before the turn-in date for the customs of, you know, being active in the Pout House forum. It's just really awesome to see the different interactions, and that place really is a family. But anyways, what you had the chance to do was, as a Pout House member, starting July 1st to the end of the month, you had that time span to basically send in whatever kind of knife you could think up. I mean, endless options. The sky's the limit. If you wanted a 10-inch fighting dagger or whatever, you could do it. Or if you wanted a small whatever, you could do it. They don't do folders, but obviously any fixed blade. There was actually someone who did spear points and someone who did arrowheads. So they really put themselves kind of out on the line to just show what they're capable of doing there. And what you had to do was you had to send in a drawing to scale of what you wanted. So I started crunching stuff together. I could only choose certain qualities from all the different knives I've used and I've held. What would they be and why? And I started writing down a list of what I wanted, and then I took the actual knives that I got from that list, which really ended up being 3, and there's a couple on the outside of that I do not own, that I've only held and I've only used somebody else owned, that I tried my best to remember what it was about it. So and then from there I took a sheet of graph paper and did exact measurements with a ruler and all that, and I hand drew out what would be a blank, and made sure that the blade length was exactly what I wanted, whatever. And then I'll put up pictures, kind of like a slideshow from the Pout House forum, of the whole process from the beginning until the end. And you can see, like, they literally use that as the template and as the blank to laser jet or water jet cut out from the blank of steel. So it's a complete custom. I mean, it definitely has strong influences from some of the knives that we're familiar with, but there's a reason for that. It's because I like those, but there's just always a little something extra that I wanted. So before I turn you around and kind of get you an overhead, like, or over the shoulder view of what's on the desk, the 3 knives that had the biggest influence on me were my Blind Horse knife, PLSK1. That was the first custom real knife that I bought. It was my first, like, holy cow, this is the real deal kind of thing for me, knife. And I bought that and used it through for almost a year uh, before I ventured out. And so that was the first influence, and I'll go over why that was an influence. The second influence, which was probably uh, the biggest one of the three, was the LT Wright Knives Genesis. Now, I consider that one knife, but I'm going to be showing you two, and there's a difference between them. Two Genesis, but that was the biggest influence, because that's still by far, until I really put this to use and whatever, that still is a knife that you can hand me any day of the week and I can do whatever I need to do with that knife. Absolutely love the LT Wright Genesis. And then the third knife was the LT Wright GNS. And so those three knives kind of all combined on the paper when I drew it out, and that was my biggest influence from it all. Now, the other two that I mentioned that I don't own but I've held before are like Beardlore style knives, like Coke bottle knives with the pronounced Coke bottle handle, the swells and all that on it, and then that style point. I really, those knives are beautiful to me, and they're very functional, and you just can't beat the handles on them. You don't get any fatigue. It's pretty similar to the GNS, except the GNS doesn't swell as much. And then the other one was a Skookum bush tool. I happened to get a chance to hold and play around with it for 20-30 minutes at the Wolf Customs gathering this past year. I got to use Justin's, and it was really hard trying to remember every little thing, but I remember I really liked the blade shape on that too, and the handle on it. So what I've learned is the handle of a knife, and this is just my opinion, the handle of a knife for me is probably the most important aspect of the knife, besides obviously it being a full tang. Everything else is just preferences to me. The handle can make or break a knife. You could have the most awesome blade shape and steel and grind and thickness and yada yada yada, but if the handle doesn't fit your hand or is not comfortable, it's going to be useless for you. Even if you try your hardest to grow your hand to that knife, to callus your hand up to that knife, there's still always going to be an option where you could pick up this other knife that it's instant. You know, it's just that way to me. And that went into my mentality as to designing this, because there were certain things about knives that I've used over the years that I really truly loved, but the handle or the sweep of the blade, or just all that stuff. So enough talking. Just wanted to let you know kind of premise to this before I show you. And all right, so here's the three main knives that I own that contributed to how I made the decision to come up with this design. Now these two are obviously the same. They're both Genesis, but there is a difference between the two. But here's my custom knife, okay, at the top. And I kind of did these in order from the original idea, I guess. But right here we have the Blind Horse Knives PLSK1. Everybody's seen this knife. This one I happened to get from a good friend, used, and he had already put this tiger stripe patina on there. I absolutely love that. It's a Scandi. It's I mean, we all know the specs on this knife, so it's a bigger knife. Now, the reason why this had influence on this knife was because this was my first ever real bushcraft knife. before this knife, I had a custom knife from a guy that I got at a knife show, but it was just so big and so heavy, and it was just unpractical. And then after this, I had a cheap Winchester knife. So this was my first big purchase knife that I realized there's a difference between what you can get all the time as opposed to a custom. And there's a lot that I love about this knife. Like, I love the blade shape. I really do. I love the French trade knife blade shape and how it gradually slopes down, and just the overall size of the knife. But the thing that I learned over time after using other knives like these was the thickness of it being 3/16 was just too thick for me. The delicate fine carving stuff that I started to enjoy and wanted to do and get better at was just cumbersome, and it was hard to truly do what I wanted with a thick blade like this. Now, would I trust my life and my wife's life and everybody that's watching this video's life on this knife? Absolutely I would. I would grab this knife if the zombies are coming this way right now and know that it's going to be here until I die, and then the person after that until they die. It's an heirloom. I know that. But the thickness was a deal killer for me if I were able to change something about this knife, because of what I mentioned. And also, I like the idea of the one tool option thickness, but it's just impractical, especially if you're able to have an axe or a saw. The other thing I did not like about this knife was the handle. This broomstick handle like this, I love the feel of it back here. I love the rounded and the thickness of it. But up here, it wants to wiggle. It wants to move in my hand. It wants to shift and rub and cause a hot spot here and in here. Okay? And I didn't like that. What I ended up doing was putting a lanyard on here and doubling this over and giving me some extra thickness, and that's a lot better. So that was something that I didn't like. But where this had influence on this knife was the length and the beefiness of it. This was at the time before this knife. Now, this is the biggest knife that I own. The longest, thickest, hardiest knife that I own. So I wanted something that could fill that void of comfort, durability, but not as thick and heavy, and without this style handle. And then I wanted something this length. I like having a true 5-inch cutting edge. And I don't know off the top of my head. Let's see real quick. Yeah. So see, this is an actual 5-inch cutting edge with a 5 1/4, almost 5.5 inch blade. I like the 5-inch cutting edge. It's not necessary, but I own other knives that have a smaller cutting edge than this, and I wanted a little bit more availability, I guess, of a larger cutting blade. I own these two Genesis. That's my shorter cutting blade, and I own a couple of small fixed blade like EDC knives. So this was the only knife that I had that was a real 5-inch cutting blade, and I wanted that again. So that's where that came in. It's my first ever knife. It's very sentimental. I will never, ever, ever get rid of this knife, and that was a huge influence on this design. All right, now, these are kind of out of order, but I'll just show the GNS next. So here we have the GNS. Okay, this knife is 1/8. It's 01 tool steel, just like the PLSK1, and it's got an amazing handle on it. This is probably one of the best handles I have ever held in my life. The Skookum and the Beardlore style Coke bottle handles are right there with it, but just this shape of having a swell here and somewhat of a swell here and then another swell at the bottom, and your finger for your hand where your fingers will fit in. Your index finger naturally goes here, and your hand's filled up in the middle with these two fingers, and then your pinky comes here. And a lot of times people complain about there not being enough meat at the end and your pinky wanting to trail off if you're really doing some work. This just locks your hand in completely. So the handle on this was a huge influence for me on this knife. I wanted something very similar to this handle, but I wanted something just a tad bit thicker, and yeah, that was really it. I mean, this handle's perfect. Now, what I wanted different about this knife, I have come to learn that I am not as much of a fan of O1 tool steel as what I am another type of steel. It's a great steel. I love it. It patina's really nice, like you can see. It doesn't rust near as bad as just plain 1095. It's tough as nails, but I've come to love a different type of steel. So I would change this steel on my GNS. Also the grind, I'm just not a fan of saber grinds. Really any multi-beveled grind. Full flats are great. I've really come to enjoy that. I've got a little small fixed blade EDC that's a full flat, and I really enjoy it. But sabers, convex, really those kind of grinds with a smaller bevel at the end, I'm just not a fan of. So I would change the bevel. I also love this blade shape, but I'm a bigger fan of the Genesis blade shape, of the more of a spear point Kepart style instead of this sharper point. But that's where the GNS came in for me, was the handle and the blade shape here of kind of the gradual sloping to a sharper point compared to the Kepart. I do enjoy that. But like I said, I didn't like the grind on the GNS, on this GNS. Now I know at the time when I bought this, they didn't have Scandies. So now they've got Scandi GNS. I would love to try a Scandi GNS too. But yeah, the saber grind, I didn't want a saber grind, and I didn't want O1 tool steel. So now the biggest influence. This is my Genesis. I bought this Genesis from the same individual that I bought my PLSK1 from, and I have since put this through hell and back. This knife has literally been completely submerged underwater for pretty much the equivalence of 4 days on that kayak trip. Completely rusted over. Nasty rusted over. I can send you a pic if you want. Let me know in the comment box. And I cleaned it up, and it just left a good patina on here. There's no pitting. There's no damage to it. It's just a hell of a knife. This knife is by far the best knife that you can get from LT Wright Knife, in my opinion. The thumb scallops on here are just a dream for me. Wood processing, anytime you want to do chest lever grips, this is amazing. When you're striking your ferro rod, you can literally put the force of your thumb behind the ferro rod and push down. I love that. The blade shape of the Kepart style is just perfect. It's perfect for any kind of bow drill technique, any kind of divots you want to make. It's sharp enough of a slope that you can get underneath to skin game. It's got a gradual enough tip here that you can work underneath fur. The handle is simple, but it's perfect. It doesn't taper here that much, if it does at all, like the PLSK1, and the thickness is just amazing. You've got enough of a groove here that it locks your hand in, and I love it. I love the GNS, and there wasn't really anything about this that I didn't want. I mean, I was almost debating about making just an enlarged GNS, like an XL GNS, but I didn't. I decided to try and go with the more of a shaped contoured handle. But the thing I love most about this GNS, and I kind of referenced it when I was talking about it being soaked in water and all that, this is A2 steel. for me, this is the best steel on the market that you can get. I love it. It's my favorite steel to have in a knife. It's hard enough that the edge stays on there for a long time, but it's not so hard as like stainless or some of the super steels, some of the other super steels, that you can't sharpen it, or that some steels, it just seems like stropping it does nothing. You've got to either use a ceramic rod or a diamond rod or whatever just to get it back to what you had it at. I can still strop this steel and have no problem with it. It does patina somewhat, but it doesn't stain. You can't, I've actually tried to patina vinegar base stain this, and it was on there for a little while, but after cleaning it up, it wipes off. So it's got some of the stainless steel qualities in it, but it's not a full stainless. The strength of the A2 is just perfect. I've never had this edge roll or chip on this Genesis ever. I've had a couple of little dull spots in it for sure. Like there's one right here, but it's still sharp. I can still shave with this. I guarantee it. I love it. A2 is my favorite steel. I do not own anything in D2. I've heard great things about it, but I wanted this knife to be an A2. So that's what this knife is in. It's an A2 as opposed to the 01. And I love the grind on here. LT Wright has the best Scandi grind you can get from a custom knife maker. It's, the Scandi grind on Moras is amazing, but this is right up there with it. I love the Scandi grind, so I got a Scandi grind on my knife. The scallops, like I said, I got thumb scallops put on this blade. I loved the swell here, the swell this way on the GNS, but I wanted the thumb scallops, so that's what was added to it. Now the other thing is that this too is a Genesis. This is the Hidden Woodsman that Malcolm Cordair designed with LT. It's the Hidden Woodsman Genesis. But what he did that kind of changed it for me was he added liners to the already standard scales that come in a Genesis. I know the 1 Foot into the Wild Jimmy Burley's Genesis had the liners, and I got to hold and use one of those when I was in Ohio. My buddy Jeff owns it, and also my buddy Clint owns one. There's a difference. It's hard to explain until you hold it, but there is a difference. It makes this handle thicker, and I like that, just that little bit of a thickness difference. So basically these two are the exact same knife as opposed to this one having liners and this one not. So with all of that, these powers combined, Captain Planet kind of thing, I came up with this knife. Now the difference is I got this in 5/32 A2. So it's not as thick as a 3/16, but it's thicker than your 1/8. The weight on it is not unbearable. It's still lighter than this PLS K1, but it's also, it's obviously heavier than the Genesis. But I got it in 3/32. It's A2 steel. They did laser etch my name on there. Beautiful stamp. The Scandi grind, the sharpened spine, thumb scallops, liners. It's actually got 2 liners, and the reason behind that, I have what would have been the 3rd liner right here. They sent that with the knife, but the reason behind that is when I ordered these scales to put on this knife, I had the idea of getting a true Coke bottle Woodlore style handle. I wasn't aware that the outer scales needed to be so thick for them to get that shape. Because what would have happened is, even if they would have thrown in the 3rd liner to add the bulkiness to it, Scooter would have ended up grinding through, You can almost see, I mean, there's hardly, you know, there's enough there, there's plenty, but he would have almost ended up grinding through the outer scale, and the liner would have been peeking through if he would have done a true Coke bottle. Now, it still has a swell. You can feel it. It swells here gradually, and then it tapers and swells back. But it worked out great. I mean, I'm actually kind of happy that we didn't do the true Coke bottle because it fits my hand perfect. These scales are by a company called Beyond Wood Products. This is called Shockwood. So what they do, what I'm guessing, is they take a burl or a piece of wood here. I'm pretty sure this is a burl. And they cast it in resin with all the different glitter and colors and all of that. So this is a resin burled handle. And what's interesting about this is I've looked into it. It's a very durable material. As far as comparing it to my Carta, I can't tell you, or G10, I can't tell you because I just got this knife, but I'll be able to here soon. But it's a really durable material. People put this Shockwood Beyond Wood Products material on so much stuff that I didn't have any doubts about it being durable. And what's cool is this has like a polished micarta feel to it right here. But when your hand is on this burl, which happens to be right where my fingers are, it's a wooded burl feel. It's still somewhat glossy. It's not slick at all, but you can feel the difference. This is a little bit stickier than this, and I like that. I didn't know that was going to be that way. What else? It is a longer blade compared to a Genesis. You can see it has a true 5-inch cutting edge, just like the PLSK1. But it's got a longer blade on it. I wanted that because I want my goal for this is to put this knife on my hip and not take it off. To put this knife on my hip and complement it with either a folder or a small fixed blade like this one. And that's all I'm going to need. That's it. I have no doubt in my mind that I can put this knife through hell and back and have that extra inch or so of blade to do more wood processing and whatnot. This is my idea of a one tool option, in all honesty, for me. This is what I had in mind was for a one tool option. This can do it all. It's got enough of a slope here that I can still skin, process stuff. Here's the blade shape compared to the G&S. It is quite different, but you can still see the similarities in it. And the handle, it is different, but again, you can see the similarities. So they did a killer job. I mean, I can't believe how well they did. The handle's right at 5 inches, so it's right at a 10-inch knife. From tip, it's a little over, which is what I wanted. It's a 10 1/4. So you've got a 5 1/4 blade with a 5-inch cutting edge and a 5-inch handle. This is my idea is put from paper to blade. So you're going to be seeing this knife in a lot more of my videos. It's just amazing. I've already done some feathers and some notches with it. Here's probably one of the best feathers I've ever done. So I can definitely get thin paper curls with a 5/32 inch blade. So I'm going to put the slideshow at the end of this video showing you from the beginning, the blade, the blank being cut out, heat treat, the scales and glue, all of that from the pictures I've gotten. And then I'll actually do some close-ups too of the blade. So thanks for bearing with me and sounding nasty and being sick and all that. I'm really excited about this knife. It's been a long time coming for me. There's been times I've been really impatient and wanting it really bad. So, I mean, from July until now, this is what LT and them are able to do. So, thank you guys for watching this, and enjoy this little slideshow at the end. It's like a green with like an amber, almost glitter finish. And there's your burl wood, lanyard hole. Forest green liners, black liners. Your thumb scallops right here. Here's the pommel. The focus. It's just beautiful. There's what it looks like in my hand. I wear about a medium large glove. So I like the extra on the end. It's perfect. All right, guys, enjoy the slideshow.